We've all heard it, right? Using DIY tax software is the smart, frugal way to go. But what if I told you that conventional wisdom isn't just a little off? What if it's actively costing you a fortune? We're going to dive into this because the hidden costs here can be, well, absolutely staggering.
And look, this isn't some made-up story or a hypothetical. This is a direct quote from a CPA who had to clean up the mess. This one sentence just perfectly captures the high-stakes reality we're talking about. One person, a piece of software, and a six-figure mistake.
So that's the real question we need to ask ourselves, isn't it? Are you actually saving a couple $100 on a preparer's fee, or are you unknowingly paying thousands, or maybe even hundreds of thousands, more to the government? Let's break down the mechanics of when you should use these tools, and maybe more importantly, when you should run away from them.
Okay, so let's be fair here. These software programs, they aren't inherently evil. They absolutely have a very specific and very useful purpose. They're built for people with a pretty straightforward financial profile. So let's define exactly who that is.
Basically, if this sounds like you, you're probably in the clear. You get a W-2 from your job, you live and work in the US, you don't have any complex side businesses or weird foreign investments. For this profile, the software is a perfect tool. It's a simple input-output process, no problem. But here's the thing, life rarely stays simple forever, right? Your finances evolve, they get more complicated, and this is where the danger lies. This is what we're calling the complex crossroads. We're taking that same old DIY path can literally lead you off a financial cliff. So let's look at the red flags you just cannot ignore.
So if any of this rings a bell for you, your tax situation has fundamentally changed. The second you become an entrepreneur or an expat where you have foreign assets, you've basically graduated to a level of complexity that the software just isn't built to handle strategically. I mean, sure, it might have the forms, but it doesn't have the foresight.
So when you boil it all down, it's really this simple. It's a decision tree. Are you on the simple path, or have you crossed over to the complex one? Misidentifying your own complexity is probably the single most expensive assumption you can make. And the software, it can't and it won't warn you that you've crossed that line.
All right, to really see what happens when this goes wrong, let's walk through a real-life case study. This isn't about trying to scare you, it's about understanding the cause and effect, the chain of events that kicks off when complexity is ignored.
Okay, so picture this. We've got an entrepreneur who's been using DIY software for years in the US, and it worked for him back then. But then he moves out of the country. He becomes a non-resident. His business is still going strong, but his tax process, it didn't change at all. He just kept doing what he'd always done. And this, my friends, is where the cascade of errors begins.
What's just wild here is how the mistakes all stack on top of each other. It all started with step one. He failed to file something called a dual status return. That's a special form for the year you move, which meant the IRS never officially knew he left. That mistake led directly to step two, using the wrong form, the one for residence, which then led to step three. He overreported his income, paying US tax on money that the US had no right to tax anymore. And finally, step four, he completely missed a critical form for his business, and that triggered a massive separate penalty.
Now let's just pause on that last mistake for a second. The penalty for failing to file just one of those required business forms, it's called Form 5472, is an automatic $25,000. And that's not a one-time fee. That's per form, per year it was missed. This is a huge penalty generated by a simple omission, a box the software never prompted him to check because it couldn't possibly understand his new situation.
So when you add it all up, what's the damage? Well, this client paid hundreds of thousands of dollars on income that wasn't even taxable in the US in the first place. And on top of that, he faced tens of thousands more in penalties for forms he didn't even know existed. Just a devastating financial outcome that started with the simple choice to use the same software he used last year.
So all of this really forces us to look at the whole cost of a CPA in a completely different way.
We have to stop thinking about that fee as just a cost and start analyzing it as an investment with a potential return.
And this chart really lays it out, doesn't it? With DIY software in a complex situation, that low upfront cost is just an illusion. It's hiding a potentially massive negative outcome from overpayments and penalties. Now, with a CPA, sure, the upfront fee is higher, but it's an investment that's designed to produce a positive net value through strategic savings and, crucially, avoiding risk.
Because you're not just paying someone to fill out forms, right? That's not the point. What you're really investing in is strategy. A good CPA gives you forward-looking advice on how to structure your business, when to time transactions, and how to operate in a way that legally minimizes what you owe and lowers your risk of an audit. You see, the software is reactive. A professional is proactive.
And this quote from the source material just sums it up perfectly. When you factor in the financial risks of overpaying, the potential for these crippling penalties, and even just the value of your own time, well, the option that seems more expensive on the surface often becomes the cheaper one in the long run. So, I guess I'll just leave you with this one last question to think about. Look at your own finances with an honest, really analytical eye. Have you crossed over from that simple path to the complex one? Because just hoping your situation is simple isn't a strategy, it's a gamble. And as we've seen, the stakes are so much higher than you think.